Welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Today's episode, guitar culture references that you need to get. And Scott and I are going to leaf through our childhoods with a bunch of issues of Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that's amazing how you can try as you might. There's always going to be technical issues that keep popping up. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Other than roll with the punches, roll with it, baby. Steve Winwood once told us.
As Steve Winwood taught us.
Yep. And actually, Steve Winwood's underrated, man. He's a great songwriter, musician, great musician. Oh my God, ridiculous. I'm not sure how much you know about Steve Winwood as a player, but I mean, he played every.
Dude, it brings me back to riding around in the back of my dad's 1986 Country Squire station wagon.
Yeah, listening to Steve Winwood, probably Higher Love and all that stuff.
It was ubiquitous on the radio, right? And just that sense of dread, knowing that no matter where Dad said we were going to go that night, maybe there was the promise of Toys R Us.
the one thing that keeps you in control.
Yeah, the station wagon always ended up at Home Depot.
All right, we're gonna go find some nuts and bolts and hammers and wood and all that stuff.
Which is what I did as a kid. I would take like those straps that keep palleted goods bundled together.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Right, I'd collect those loose screws, sawdust,
create weapons of war with them.
Absolutely,
something
dude.
Like that,
I armed myself.
Whatever you could do. Winwood, though, actually, I was watching something that was like a couple years ago, and I remember I was like, hey, I like Steve Winwood. I'll check out this live thing. This is on TV. I'll record it. And I looked at it, and then I couldn't believe what a great musician he was. And some of this stuff was verging on like jazz fusion. It was actually surprising. I mean, because I'm used to him being like kind of pop R&B singer songwriter guy. But he's like had chops like for days and could play every instrument. I mean, it was incredible.
Well, as we've explained before on this podcast, to be successful in music during the 80s, you had to be really good at music.
Well, he was in Traffic back in the 70s too, so I mean, he was been around at that point. He had been around for 15 years or something like that before.
Also a decade that required being good at music.
Really, right up to about the mid 90s. That's when it was optional to be good at music.
Right.
I mean, and then now, I mean, you don't have to even actually play an instrument to be quote unquote good at music.
Dude, have you seen the ads for that plug-in that chooses the chord progression for you?
I can't believe that exists. So I know, but you're an artist. Anyway,
so
that's just me being bitter old men, though. At the end of the day, because
get off my.
Our genre of music requires that you actually can play, which is totally true.
Absolutely, but it also requires that you're aware of certain cultural references.
That's true. And then that's going to be something we're going to talk about today on the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Brian and Scott. Thank you so much for listening. Today's topic, Brian, you want to elaborate on what you were just saying?
Yeah. So the other day I was at a lesson with a student of mine.
Who shall go nameless.
Yeah, who shall go nameless. Yep. He's a teenager, and I love him to death. Super talented person. So he played me a recording that he had made. And I listened for a bit, and my reply was, "That's beautiful. What do you call it? Lick my love pump?"
He looks at you like, "What are you talking about?" I'm triggered. I got to call someone for help. My teacher's saying inappropriate things to me.
It went over his head. So I had to explain.
There's a whole movie called This is Spinal Tap, and one of the things in the movie is this. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Which, really, I should start including like a screening of Spinal Tap after your first lesson.
Yeah, it should be like required to go home. Your homework tonight is to go find on whatever streaming platform you have. Go watch This is Spinal Tap.
Totally.
You must know these. Also, in the movie Crossroads, you need to go see that. And maybe a double feature of Wayne's World and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes.
See those movies that you have to kind of know that walking in the door. You know what I mean?
Yes, these are pop culture references that you need to be aware of, or certainly guitar culture references.
Very much appropriate if you're a musician or guitar player. So you have to understand if someone says, "Okay, lick my love pump," that's from Spinal Tap.
Right. Simple lines intertwining.
You know what's hilarious is some people don't even understand like when this goes to 11. They don't even know what that They know what that means like big picture wise, but they don't know that's referring to an amplifier turning it up to 11. They don't know it comes from Spinal Tap. They just know the phrase this goes to 11.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool that has crossed over.
Yes.
Right. So this is how great This is Spinal Tap Is, which by the way, the movie is called This Is
Yes,
Spinal
it's
Tap.
a
That
movie
is the
from
whole-
like I think 81 or 82. It's directed
Yep.
by Rob Reiner. It stars like all the people of like if you know
directed by Marty DeBurgi.
Yeah, exactly. Rob Reiner is who's the guy that did it, and then you have the stars like Christopher Guest and
Michael McKean.
and
Harry Shearer.
all the guys from like the Mighty
Fran
Wind,
Drescher.
Best in Show. Yeah, Fran Drescher's in it too. There's a bunch of people in it, and
Yeah.
it's got like all the same troupe that you've. Have you ever seen a Mighty Wind or Best in Show or the Waiting for Guffman? I want to say it is.
Yeah, I think also that, yes.
Those are all the same people.
So
Basically.
Nigel Tufnell is Jamie Lee Curtis's husband.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah, because he is Christopher Guest. You're right. Yep, I forgot about that. He's a brilliant comedian too. Oh my God.
And he's not a bad guitar player
No, he's
either.
not. Well, none of the guys in that band are bad musicians. They actually all can really play.
Wait, so you're saying like you had to be good at music?
Well, they were great at comedy and acting, and they just happened to also be great at music too. You know what I mean? And
I think one of the things that's great about one of the many things that's great about This Is Spinal Tap, and there's a follow-up, The Return of Spinal Tap, which is well worth a view.
I don't know if I ever saw that. Where did that come out?
It came out like 92,
Is
something
this like
like
when
that.
they had the Break Like the Wind record? They had like, is it?
You know
Yeah.
how every year I send everybody a link to Christmas with the Devil every Christmas.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually I had a few students where we learned how to play Christmas with the Devil this last year for the
Nice.
holidays. Yeah,
Oh,
it
it's
was
just
awesome.
a warm family feeling.
It totally is.
thing,
Yes. He wishes you very well. Oh yes, he does.
But I didn't
Yeah,
know what the Return
so
of
that
Spinal
was-
Tap, though. When did that? Was that
Yeah.
like a full length movie or?
It was a live show.
Oh, okay.
Where they do a bunch of
The
they've got all
classic
the shtick.
material, yeah.
Yeah, so like on Rock and Roll Creation, right? The tune where Derek Smalls gets stuck in the pod.
Yeah.
Well, for the Return of Spinal Tap, they all descend from the ceiling onto the stage with cables, but Derek gets stuck about 8 feet from the ground, and he's just stuck there the whole song. And they have to bring out ladders and get up there with wire cutters and clip him down. It's pretty great.
That's hilarious. I'm
It's so great.
trying to think what are other good quotables. Like obviously, None More Black from that movie. That's a really
You can see yourself in it.
exactly how much more black, none more black.
None more black.
Yeah, that's a very classic one.
Yep.
The Hello Cleveland when they're in the wrong town is pretty funny.
Where they get lost under the stage.
Yep, exactly. Which
Right.
is, if you've been to certain venues, that actually is not I think I've mentioned before, like what Ozzy used to say, like this isn't even comedy. This is just my life. What they were showing.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I'm
I
saying?
think the lost under the stage bit, I think that was a Twisted Sister thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bands who've experienced that. You know what I mean? So.
Well, it's so relatable,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. If you're in a band, it's very relatable. I think the ridiculousness of the stage show and having them be in pods and descending from the
Yeah.
ceiling and stuff. And one other running joke in that movie is that the drummers keep exploding from spontaneous combustion.
They keep dying, right?
That's so funny.
Poor Mick Shrimpton.
Yes, exactly.
He taught us to have a good time all the time. Dude, I'm serious. I can
love
quote
that
the whole
so much.
movie.
I know. I
Yeah.
know. I've seen it a million
From
times
start to
too.
finish.
Now,
Yeah.
other movies that from that time period you should know. Like one would be like you mentioned someone that they might have to duel Ralph Macchio.
I had another student last week, and yes, so I forget exactly what the quip was on my part, but it was something about, yeah, dude, if you keep on practicing, you might have to duel Ralph Macchio someday.
So what you're going? You mean the guy from Cobra Kai? And you go, yes.
Yes, I mean an actual karate duel. Correct. Doesn't Ralph Macchio? Doesn't the Karate Kid become the antagonist in Cobra Kai? I've never
no
watched
idea.
it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess wasn't he really the Karate Man at that point?
Right.
He's in his 50s. He's not the Karate Kid anymore.
Yes, he's Grandpa Karate.
Exactly. But anyway, that's a reference, of course, to the classic movie Crossroads, which, believe it or not, stars not only Ralph Macchio and Jamie Gertz, but also Steve Vai,
Right.
the Devil's guitar player, and basically the
Jack Butler.
Jack Butler, exactly, which is the first place a lot of people saw Steve Vai because he played the Devil's guitarist, and it was an incredible movie because it was all about music. Basically, the idea of the movie was there's this classical guitarist who also loves the blues, who's studying at Juilliard, and he goes and finds this like long lost blues band who apparently sold his soul to the devil for fame and fortune.
Like Robert Johnson.
Yeah, but he's a harpist. He plays he plays blues harmonica.
Based on the myth about Robert
Yeah.
Johnson.
And then he
selling his
knows
soul.
apparently the lost song that Robert Johnson never recorded, and he's going to show this to the guitarist if he takes him to the South and makes to deal with the devil to save his soul again.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome if someone was like, well, if you can play Robert Johnson's Lost Song, I'd be like, okay, it's a 1-4-5 in A. Let's go.
Exactly.
I found Robert Johnson's Lost
G?
Song. Oh, yeah. It was in A flat.
Yeah,
That's why it's the Lost
They
Song.
tuned down.
Right.
No, but it just cracks me up. But the movie was, the whole idea was they had going on this musical exploration, like learning about being a musician and meeting a girl and having, like all this. It was like this really cool adventure kind of idea that also involved the devil trying to steal people's souls. And that's a classic, even like Jimmy Page had like, whispers about like, his selling his soul to the devil kind of thing. And,
Oh, Jimmy Page was great for the occult stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, buying Aleister Crowley's like old mansion.
But anyway, the climax of the movie is a big guitar duel between Ralph Macchio and Steve Vai. Which, like, contrary to the way you would think, it actually goes in the way of Ralph Macchio. He actually ends up winning that duel.
Yeah, well, and that's what kind of like knocks you out of the suspension of disbelief.
It's like, yeah, Steve Vai was going to rip your face off, dude. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know it's pretty funny. I think if I'm not mistaken, Steve Vai actually played both parts. I think he played the part that Ralph Macchio played, and he did his own part. And I know it was Arlen Roth. I want to say was the guy who did. Is it Arlen Roth?
Who tracked the
blues stuff?
The blues stuff.
Yeah.
For...
Maybe I'm wrong about that. Was it Arlen Roth? I don't know.
I don't remember. I was just so focused on the Steve Vai part.
Yeah, I was too. He had such cool Kramer guitar, and he was just this rocker.
It was a Jackson.
Was it Jackson? I thought it was a Kramer.
It's a red Jackson.
Oh,
yep.
you're right. Yeah.
It's their Guitar World a few years ago, and maybe it's on guitarworld.com. I would highly recommend trying to find it. They actually tracked down the Crossroads guitar.
Oh wow!
It's a red
so
Jackson.
Steve Vai doesn't have it anymore. It wasn't anything that was like nice.
No, and apparently there were a bunch of different ones, right, that were made for the shot. But apparently, like, they had just painted it. So when Steve Vai is playing it in that scene, the paint is still wet on that guitar.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's really interesting how they tracked it down, and figuring out what the serial numbers were, because it was actually built by Grover. And
that's so cool.
If I remember,
I bet it was
correctly.
awesome then. If Grover built it by hand, I bet it was killer.
Dude, I'm sure it was awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So so pretty interesting thing. Again, I recommend all of you out there. I think it was a Guitar World article. So.
Yeah. Well, then a couple other movies that I think in that time period that were really, it's actually three I can think of. One would be Wayne's World, obviously. That's kind of an obvious one. The two rock and metal loving dudes running a TV show falls in love with a band, a chick who's the front person of a band. And, they go into the music store and playing Stairway to Heaven and getting shut down.
Yeah, so Wayne's World, to me, is meaningful for just that one scene in the guitar shop.
Yeah. Can I help you?
You gotta play the can I help you riff. Right.
I like when Garth actually does the drum solo and then stops and goes, I like to play. And then
I like to play. That's a good one too. Yeah, absolutely. But just like that's what your local music store used to be, folks.
Yep.
Before you got lazy and just ordering everything online.
And then Bill and Ted, the first Bill and Ted, well, even to a degree, all the Bill and Ted movies really are kind of based around their love of music. Their whole goal is, I'm going to save the world with music. That's what it was. And these two guys who just love music so much, they don't have any ability at first, but it's one of those things where it's like they just love it so much they can't wait to do it. I think you have to understand that at that time, and actually the last one I'll mention is Back to the Future, where Marty McFly is trying to get his band signed. That's like the beginning part is like, sorry, they're just too loud at the beginning, and then at the end when he kicks ass and plays Johnny Be Good, and he goes, I guess you guys aren't ready for that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so we're moving through these at a really, really quick pace there. So so there's the lineup. So let's go back to Wayne's World.
Okay.
Right. So just if you're out there listening, just watch that scene in the music store. And just soak in the atmosphere of how cool that place is.
That was a real thing.
Was a real thing, right? Again, before it was put in jeopardy by people ordering things online.
I think it's not just that. I think the culture at that time really elevated that too. I mean, there was something in the air in the late 80s and early 90s about like how a rock and roll guitar shop was like the coolest place you could ever be.
Well, it was.
The coolest thing you ever could do would be playing rock guitar. The coolest thing you could ever place you could ever go would be either a rock and roll club or a rock guitar shop. That's like the coolest places that you could ever exist as a human being. And I think that was just in the zeitgeist of the time. And if you listen to the music in that time period from like say 86 to like 92, you can hear it in the music that the coolest thing you could ever do is be an excellent guitar player. You know what I mean? That's like the coolest thing you could ever aim for. It's better than being a CEO. It's better than being a doctor. It's better than being an NFL star. You know, that was the coolest thing you could ever do.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, and, you know, and given the age that you and I were, like, in that period.
Yeah, or like 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, like, how could you not want to do this for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's
right?
like the coolest thing ever. I mean,
how could you not fall in love with it?
Which was so, like, when you listen to our podcast, if you guys are long-time listeners, I mean, we've only been on for a couple months, but long-time listeners.
Long-time listeners and supporters.
Yeah, but, like, you know, the heartbreak, the grunge apocalypse wrought upon Ryan and I, it's because it was the death of that culture. It was the death of that. This is the coolest thing you could ever be as a rock guitar player. This is like this is the pinnacle of civilization.
I think what it was is, well, and, you know, when you went into the guitar shops back then, like, everybody that worked there was a monster player.
Yep. And it doesn't matter where you lived in the country or any place you go, there's monster guitar players working at guitar shops because that's what you had to be back then.
Yep.
To be considered a real guitar player, you had to be a monster guitar player.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There was no like average like schmo just strumming a couple chords guy. It was like you had to be a beast to be a considered
all the guys that were teaching at the little guitar shop when I first got there, they were teaching. It wasn't the end goal. They were just biding time until their band took off or something else, you know, happened,
gone
right?
Some other gig or something. And,
dude, one of the guys there, his local band was endorsed by Budweiser.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember when,
which, you know, kind of a
when
thing,
my guitar teacher Eric's band got endorsed by Jackson Guitars. That was a big deal, and I mean, that was like exciting. Like, oh my god, he got endorsed by Jackson Guitars. This is incredible. You know, my teacher's Jackson Dorsey, and I mean, I remember. God, I mean, Jeff Watson used to teach at that place.
Yeah,
you know
that's right.
From Night Ranger. That was, you know, that just showed you that was like it was almost like a farm system. You kind of go do this for a while.
Yeah,
and you
totally.
work your way out of it.
Analogy.
You know what I mean? That was kind of what it was. But I mean, that being said, it was a damn cool place to be, and it was
the best.
And I think, you know, you and I have always had a foot in that door, but we've seen, especially since the grunge apocalypse kind of wrought its destruction, that like there's really. It's just another place you go. It's not like it's like a cool, like this is the coolest thing you could ever do anymore. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it's just like going to Target or something.
Yeah, you know, the commoditization of things. You know, it's So
and less centralization of guitar as a focal point of pop culture. It's gotten so sidelined to the point where now the DJs and rappers and the EDM people, if you have a laptop and headphones and a laptop, you're considered a musician.
Or a producer.
Yeah, you know what I mean? As opposed to back then, you know, you need an amp and a guitar and you actually know how to, you know, play it. That was, you know,
well, and the other thing that was cool about, well, and all of that is very, how do I put this? I mean, it sounds very lonely. Like you don't really have to connect with anybody else.
Well, I think that's a good analog for our times. Everyone's kind of isolated. You know?
Yeah, it's very isolating.
Walk into a restaurant, look around you, and then see like how many people are engaging with each other and how many people are just staring at their phones.
Yep.
Or intermittently staring at their phones and barely engaging. I think that's our connectivity, ironically enough, is making us more separated.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Everyone's in a silo. But, you know, back then you'd go into the guitar shop and, I mean, you could learn just by being in there.
Well,
right? That's why I wanted to work there when I was a kid.
What was that thing you just played? And, oh, it's like this, you know, and then that's how you learn stuff, you know, because... and it's just inspiration too at the end of the day. And I think that the fact that in the like movies that were coming out at that time period, the guitar was that same, like the superhero was the guitar player.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Way better than the MCU.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at like Wayne's World or Bill and Ted, where they're trying to be that, they're trying to get to that. And then you look at like same thing, Back to the Future, that he's trying to get to that. He's been struggling and he's worshiping these guitar gods. I mean, what does he play to wake up his dad? He plays Van Halen.
That's right. And he's got that that little metal pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is nuts.
And then at the end, he's jamming out like a rocked out version of Johnny Be Good, you know, and then people are like losing it, and he's doing tapping and shredding and stuff. It's like, you know, it was the coolest thing you could possibly.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox doing the power slide way before Jack Black. I like Jack Black. If you're listening, Jack, it's cool. I'd love to have you on the podcast.
I actually have a connection with that movie in the sense that one of my guitar instructors at MI was a guy named Paul Hansen, and Paul Hansen was Michael J. Fox's guitar coach on Back to the Future.
Oh, nice.
So he's the guy that showed him how to do the tapping and how to do the moves and stuff and where to put his hands so it looked like he was playing. and stuff like that. I never really cornered Paul and made him tell me all about it, but I remember like hearing him talking to other people kind of about it, and I thought it was kind of cool.
Rad.
I hired this guy from MI to come down and show him how to like look like a guitar player. You know what I mean?
That's
And
so cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I gotta imagine that Michael J. Fox probably took some lessons and started trying to actually learn to play a little bit.
Yeah, well, he's been on stage even in the last 10 years, and even despite his Parkinson's diagnosis, he can play.
But if you look at those movies, those 3 movies, well, Spinal Tap's kind of an anomaly. That's like that's the ultimate. Like,
yes, that is definitely the man on the silver mountain of
yes. Kill the king. No,
you know, I played that for someone just this week, but yeah.
But you look at like Crossroads and Bill and Ted and Wayne's World and Back to the Future. You know that shows you like the place that was. You know what I mean? And I'm in a way so grateful to have been alive to be able to see that and experience that. You know what I mean? And when I hear some music from that time period, sometimes it kind of takes me back to that. I'm like, God, remember how cool it was? Like I listened to For Love of Strange Medicine by Steve Perry, and I'm listening to Lincoln Brewster like shredding and playing heavy guitars and stuff, and I'm like going,
Lincoln Brewster?
Yeah, the guy from the Christian guy.
He's a mega church guy.
But
right?
I know, but he was back then was Mr. Guitar Shredder and would want to be Dan Huff, you know, Steve Lukather guy.
What?
Yeah, and it's killer. He shreds on that. He's just absolutely ripping, dude. And I remember thinking like that was because that was the coolest thing you could do then. That's what he was doing. You know what I mean? And I listened to like Giant or Toto from that time period. Or
Giant.
You know, those bands. Yeah. And I just think like, man, that just shows you. And there's a few, like I remember with Bad Company, they put a record out around that time. It's one that has Holy Water on it. It might be actually called Holy Water. But there's like all this great music that was kind of being made in that sort of vein of that really high power.
Well, it's like AOR rock, like artist on rotation rock.
But with like real guitar though.
Sure.
It wasn't like it was not real guitar. Even Shadow King, that thing that Vivian Campbell did with Lou Gramm, you know, that came out around that time. And I remember that seems like a very like 90, 91 kind of thing. And I remember like the Lynch Mob put out freaking Wicked Temptation, and Van Halen did For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and you know, Ozzy put out you know,
No More Tears,
and Queensryche put out Empire, and you know, all these great classic albums were getting dropped. Whitesnake did Slip of the Tongue, you know what I mean? That kind of, there was like all these killer what was it? White Lion put out Big Game. I remember
the original, the first 2 Skid Row albums.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
So, I think didn't Slave to the Grind came out around that time too, right there. So I mean, there's like all these killer records being dropped, and even like the guys like Steve Perry and Lou Gramm were putting out heavy guitar records with like tons of, you know, Vivian Campbell and Lincoln Brewster like shredding.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was,
and not just heavy and like I mean, this was like heavy but with virtuosity.
Yeah, like it was rock. It wasn't like
rock,
it wasn't like lilting. It wasn't like Air Supply. Or it wasn't like
but it also was. But it also wasn't like
it wasn't Testament.
It wasn't like Godsmack Now Go Away.
It was
you
like
know, that
it
crap.
was very melodic songs, but with rock heavy guitars. Kind of Hard Lines, another band that came out around that time.
That was also a Neil Schon project. Yeah, totally.
That kind of shows you. And then obviously, you know, all the other bands were still doing great stuff too. But I remember those records really jumped. Like I think about 90, 91. Those records really jump out at me as like some of the great records that got dropped around that time period.
The dude from one of the other dudes from Hardline, I think he is a founding member of another project called Sweet Cream 69.
Wow. What a very specific name.
Well, I think it's like a semi-Japanese band.
Oh, okay.
So, but they're also awesome. I'll do some research to confirm all that and report back on another podcast.
That makes me think of Peter Griffin from Family Guy's Twitter handle, which is Pumpkin Eater 69.
Of course it is.
So anyway, those are all guitar culture things that are references that I think even if you're like say you're under 20, you should know these culture. I mean, you should know those movies. Those are classic movies.
Yeah, I mean, at least at a minimum, Spinal Tap. You have to see this is Spinal Tap.
But if you want to do like an archaeological experiment, go back and watch Bill and Ted and watch Wayne's World and watch Crossroads. They'll give you a good snapshot in the culture, like from 87 to like 91.
Right.
Like what was happening in this time period. You know what I mean?
So as you were saying about Bill and Ted, it's like, well, we've got to get Eddie Van Halen in. Yeah. Well, we have to make a video so that Eddie Van Halen joins our band.
Like, yes, Ted, but I do not believe we'll be able to make a video unless we get Eddie Van Halen. But, that's right, Bill, but we will not get Eddie Van Halen unless we have it. It's so funny. It's the greatest thing.
Dude, it's the best. I love it.
And they're like so clueless. They're just having the greatest time in their garage. There's just two buddies rocking out, and their parents think they're complete losers. And it turns, I mean, what a great message. I'm going to save the world with music.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to get good at guitar in order to do it.
Of course, but I mean that's something that's just so. There's just nothing negative about it. It's just silly goofiness with like love and music. You know what
optimistic.
I mean? Yeah, exactly. It's just it's the greatest thing. So
it's way better than rape me.
Exactly.
Right.
No one understands me because I'm so weird and unique.
Jeremy killed himself.
Yeah, heroin's gonna kill me.
Right. Yeah. God damn it.
Well, I think I think the thing that always struck me as strange about that too is like I don't understand why that got seen as more real than like like a hard line or something like that. Because to me,
record companies.
I know, but it's just so manufactured. It's like that mass marketed nonconformity thing that was big in the grunge era. You know what I mean? Like, don't you want to be different like everybody else?
Yeah, right. All you have to do to fight the conformists is dress like we do and listen to all the same music. Right?
Exactly.
Well, plus, you know what? Someone that a business colleague of mine used to always say, happiness is a choice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Like, it takes work to remain optimistic and happy, right? It's easy just to be staring at your shoes and depressed all the time.
If you're motivated to, you can see the world any way you choose to. You know what I mean? If you want to say, okay, everything's terrible, you can find lots of backup to show you the world's terrible. If you want to think the world is good, you can find lots of evidence to show you the world is good. It really depends on what you tend to want to focus on.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, but there's all those things are happening all at the same time. If you watch the local news at night, and it's nothing but murders, car crashes, people getting, kids dying of cancer. It's like nothing but the worst of the worst because they know that's going to drive ratings. But I always tell my kids, and they say, God, the world is like so terrible. Like, well, keep in mind, there's like 2 good people doing something good for every one of these bad people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they just don't get the news, the coverage. And someone like grandma gets helped across the street today, or someone went to check on somebody because they hadn't had a friend over in the house in 2 weeks and brought them some food. That doesn't make the news. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Someone covers someone else's tuition so they can go to school. That doesn't make the news.
Ironically, if you are feeling like everything's terrible, the best antidote is a song like "Shout It Out" by Slaughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is another great band that reached prominence in the early 90s.
Yeah, there's a few of those bands. We have a whole thing about bands that got screwed by the.
They're one of them for sure.
For sure, they had a little runway. They got started a little early enough to get a couple of good records in it. But like Firehouse is a band that got completely raped by the grunge apocalypse for sure. Speaking of rape me. But anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the whole like aesthetic of that's more real. Yeah, I always thought was kind of this horse shit because it's like, well, no, that's one aspect of real, but there's other aspects of real too. You can't say this isn't real too. Like Poison was real too. Going out and partying with chicks is a real thing too. You know what I mean? That and having a great time with your friends is a real thing too.
Hey, 70s glam like T-Rex and Mott the Hoople were real too.
Yeah, exactly. So
right? Like there's a lineage there that ends up at Poison.
Yeah, same thing. But I don't think that like the Sex Pistols weren't real, but they're not more real than Mott the Hoople. You know what I mean? It's Queen isn't less real than I don't know, say the Clash or something like that.
It's just that the Sex Pistols and the Clash were less good at music.
Exactly, and weren't as broad as musicians. They couldn't do as much. I mean, I don't think any of that art is not valid, but I just don't tell me this is more real than this other thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
I feel like it's just horseshit. And the whole grunge thing, like, this is more real, this is more raw. I'm like, well, it's not as good is what you mean by that. Thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Brian and Scott. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Now back to the show.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So to stay focused on the greatness of this time period that we're discussing, let's move on to the next part of our program.
Yes, which is we actually have a bunch of classic Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazines right here in front of us that Ryan and I are going to leaf through.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank my dear friend and student Garrett. I am going to drop his name because I have his permission. So Garrett, if you're out there, dude, thank you.
Well, the first one I'm going to look at this is basically it's Guitar Hall of Fame, and on the cover is Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, Angus Young, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, with a interview with Vivian Campbell and Zakk Wylde.
Yes, so
just right there, like, hello, bring it right on. That's freaking amazing, right?
Yeah.
There,
so to add a little context, so Garrett listens to our Teenage Guitar Crush episode.
Oh yeah.
Where we were talking about all the magazines that we used to love to read, right?
Yep.
So. Primarily we were lamenting the loss of Guitar for the Practicing Musician.
The greatest guitar magazine in the history of guitar magazines, with all respect to Guitar World, which is also awesome.
Also awesome.
Yep.
But anyway,
opening the page, first thing.
Yes.
ADA MP1 preamp.
Yeah. So Garrett ordered us a bunch of these
How
magazines.
cool is that? Garrett,
Right. Very, very thoughtful. So we have 4
Across from an
issues.
Ernie Ball ad with Scotty Hill and Dave Sabo from Skid Row. How cool is that, dude?
Yeah. So we have 4 issues here from 1990, 1991. So I'll take. Wait, who's on the cover of your issue?
This is Eddie, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Angus Young, and Jimi Hendrix.
So the GTFPM Hall of Fame. It's
Yes,
called
the Hall of Fame.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Nuno Betancourt cover that also highlights Mr. Big with a poster feature. There's a transcription to Daddy, Brother, Lover, Little Boy.
Awesome song with electric drills in it.
Yep. Skid Row transcription to Monkey Business. So there's the Skid Row. Moody Blues transcription to Question.
Question, why Moody Blues? That's the question I have on that one.
I don't know, but the next one it says Sex Pistols transcription to Anarchy in the UK.
That's a shame, too.
I'm not sure why
That could have easily been
there, but
Testament, Megadeth, and White Lion. But
Totally.
I'm 3
Okay.
pages in, and I got a full-page ad with Blues Saraceno with a rad plaid guitar with his Trembucker pickups and the Floyd. I mean, that's the coolest thing ever.
Was
dude.
that a Jackson guitar?
I think that's actually a Samick, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no way. I remember Samick. I bet Samick's... Well, so Samick, it was a Korean manufacturer that did OEM work for a ton of different brands. So you may have purchased a Korean-made, say, Fender or something, or like a Jackson, probably.
Made in the same factory.
It came out of the Samick plant. It
Right.
just didn't say Samick.
5 pages in, we have lessons with Reeves Gabrels, who's an amazing guitar player from Tin Machine and David Bowie.
Yeah, Reeves Gabriel's is awesome.
Alex Skolnick. I mean, oh my God, dude. That's the lessons with those guys. And Randy Coven, who was an amazing bass player back in the day. I'm not sure
so
what
now
he's doing these days.
Now, Randy Coven was a Shrapnel guy, right?
Yep.
Okay, so on the inside cover of the Nuno episode, there's an ad that says Mike Varney presents Shrapnel Records Incorporated Guitar Inspiration. And it's all these CDs you can order from. Let's see, we've got Michael Lee Firkins. We've got Richie Kotzen's Fever Dream.
Awesome record, by the way.
Yeah.
First record Richie sang on.
Dude, Joey Tafola, Intra Blue. Hell yeah. And then, and so I guess those are like the newer offerings, right?
Michael Lee Firkins is awesome, too.
Dude, Michael Lee Firkins is super awesome.
Yeah.
And then on the lower, like, I guess the more, the less recent releases, you've got Marty Friedman's Dragon's Kiss.
Great. Marty's first solo record.
Yeah,
We
Greg.
actually just heard him play some of that at the show the other day.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
We've got Jason Becker's Perpetual Burn.
Must have.
Yeah, Greg Howe, self-titled.
My favorite Greg Howe record.
Yeah, Racer X Live Extreme.
Hell yeah.
Cacophony's Go Off album.
Yep.
And Greg Howe 2, High Gear.
They started High Gear is the vocal one with his brother Al on guitar. That one's really good, actually.
Nice.
That's so great. Now I'm about 6 pages in and got a full page thing on Eddie Van Halen, which of course, followed by a Roto Sound ad with Billy Sheehan.
Dude, there's the old Metal Method ad.
Exactly.
With Michelangelo Badio and Jim Gillette.
They have a thing on classical guitar. I mean, this is like, it shows you how amazing this was. Steve Morse adapting.
Yeah.
Then they would, this is what's really set apart Guitar for the Practice Musician is they'd have performance notes on every single song, which would be like basically like I don't know, 7 paragraphs or something that just explaining what's going on in the song. What are the, not just how do you play the song, but what are the tools that are being used in the song and how are they being used, by Andy Alador, who's probably the quintessential guitar transcriptionist that's working today.
Yeah,
great
Alador's
journalist
great.
as well.
I think he's still doing lessons for Guitar World, right?
He actually just did an interview with Nuno. Speaking of Nuno.
Speaking of Nuno, here's an ad for the original Washburn N4, the one guitar I wish I'd never sold.
I never had the N4. I only had the N2, but I loved it too. I wish I didn't sell that one too. So
dude, it haunts me, man. Yeah. It haunts me now.
It does. You know what? That's just one of those things. Sometimes a lot is meant to last, and sometimes it is not.
Yeah, I just need to shake like $5,000 out of the couch cushions.
Okay, there's an ad for Mark Wood, who was the shred violinist who played electric violin with like a metal band. It says right here, the world's first heavy metal violinist.
I appreciate... I mean, have you ever listened to any of it?
I have. It's not great.
No, it's not. It's kind of like, remember those ads for The Great Cat?
Yep.
They say the great cat is God.
Yeah.
Yeah, the great cat wasn't all that great.
No, it's not good. By the way, Michael E. Firkins, just to kind of mention that, he actually did the soundtrack to the Jason Becker documentary.
Oh, nice.
That's Not Dead Yet. That's actually Michael E. Firkins did all the music for that.
Oh, that's
then we
awesome.
get into the Hot Licks ads, which is amazing stuff here. This is basically, back in the day, guys, you have to understand there was no internet. So if you wanted to get a lesson from one of these great guitar players, you had to buy a VHS tape. You had to send away for it, usually. And you can get like Eric Johnson, Vinnie Moore, Marty Friedman, you name it. All these great guitar players, and you could actually get lessons from them. Basically, it's like an hour-long video of them just showing you different licks and ideas and stuff, which I worshipped and freaking chewed and swallowed like everything I get my hands on back in the day. But that was how you learn from those guys. You couldn't go online and see a lesson from them. Every once in a while, you might see a lesson in Guitar World or Guitar for the Practicing Musician, but to see them do it live, you had to freaking order that. And this brings me back, man. It's so cool. Michael Fath. I wonder what he's doing these days.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's a Marty Friedman video. I bet you a lot of those you can see on YouTube today.
Yep. There's a very young ad for Morley with Zach Wilde. I would never have guessed that was Zach Wilde. But
that was a pre-barbarian Zach Wilde.
Before he decided to get lost in the beard.
Yes. Before he was abducted by the Germanic tribes.
Became Captain Caveman.
Yes. Oh, check this. So here's a whole article with Dave Sabo and Scotty Hill from Skid Row.
Awesome, very underrated guitar players. That's for sure. Oh my God, there's a whole ad for Blue Saraceno's Plaid album, and it's by Guitar for the Practice Musician Records. How cool is that?
That's cool.
Love it. So what do they say about Scotty and Dave?
So here's the highlighted paragraph. And again, this issue is from 1991. Skid Row are back with their second roll of the dice. The decidedly heavier guitar crunch of Slave to the Grind is good news in these times when dance and rap dominate popular music.
Wow, good thing that didn't stay.
Man, well, the editors at Guitar for the Practicing Musician were, had their fingers on the dying pulse of
No,
America.
they had no idea. It was like they had about 6 years left of runway, and then that was gonna be that.
Says while the guitars of Dave Snake Sabo and Scotty Hill speak loudly on the new release, we got the lowdown on some of the other aspects of their musical values in the listening room. So I guess that's the point of this.
I remember that they would have them listen to other artists, and make comments about them and stuff.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. I got a full page, 2-page ad for the PV5150 amp with Van Halen. When
the original
5150, which is pretty amazing.
So cool. Oh, hey, look, there's a Hammer Guitars ad.
Nice. I gotta tell you, this is something that's underrated about the old guitar magazines is the ads were so great. I can't tell how many times I took an ad picture and stuck it on my wall.
Yeah, me too. Totally.
When I was a kid. There's an ad for the Musicians Institute. That's where my alma mater. That's where I went to school. This is probably a big part of the reason why I did go to that school, is because of that. Oh my God. And they had record reviews. They did a record review of Parallels by Fates Warning, a record I've shouted out many times on this podcast. Great album.
Rad.
So cool.
Oh, there's the George Lynch ad.
There's a George Lynch full-page ad for the Screaming Demon Seymour Duncan pickup. This is like peak George Lynch. I'm looking at this. I've never seen a cooler-looking dude with a cooler-looking guitar who could play the shit out of it like him. I mean, he was ripping back in that time.
Yeah, peak George Lynch. And that guitar with the Haji on it, which is like the skull with the two like katanas in it with the snake coming out.
Yep.
Basically, it's the album cover for Wicked Sensation, right?
Yep.
I still want that guitar. Again, I'm going to have to shake about $5,000 out of the couch, which, I mean, I would do. I mean, I'll spend that kind of money on a guitar, but right now it just has to come out of the couch cushions.
So I think that's about it for this issue. What else you got in that one?
You're way ahead of me, man. I'm going.
I know. I want to get to the stuff. That's an underrated album.
Yeah, Hey Stupid from Alice Cooper. Yep. Poison was that an album to itself, or was that on Hey Stupid?
Poison was on the album Trash.
On the album Trash, that's right.
And then Hey Stupid is the one that followed that up. Now Poison was with I'm not sure.
Al Pitrelli.
Well, Al Pitrelli played the solos on that album. I'm not sure who played rhythms. It might have been Steph Burns played rhythm guitars on that.
Okay.
And then the Hey Stupid was the follow up, and that was actually the same band from Trash, but then they had guests like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Vinnie Moore played on a couple of those.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, Vinnie Moore actually did the Hey Stupid tour.
Huh. That's
which
awesome.
Is really cool.
Here's an interesting one. So, you get so speaking of ads, right? So you get the ads from all the heavy hitters.
Yep.
Right. So, the Jacksons and
Ibanez
and But then there were like the second tier manufacturers building the thing that was kind of like the thing. Like, for example, American Schuster guitars.
Yeah. Well, this guitar looks a lot like an Ibanez Sabre.
Yep.
It's very similar. Yeah.
And it looks like it has a Floyd on it.
Yep.
So
22 frets though, so that means they're not bringing their A game. It's only got 22 frets.
Right. The ad says, "Get the power of metal loading with Metalist SS." Metal loading is American Schuster's patented new technique of incorporating a lightweight metal loading fixture into the lower portion of the guitar body.
Oh, I see it right there. I must be what they're talking about right there.
Oh, so it's got like a metal strip along the lower bout near where the output jack would be.
Yeah, I don't know what the advantage to that is necessarily.
I believe there would be none.
Yeah.
Metal loading makes a solid body guitar become, in capital letters, more solid, especially under the thinner strings where it counts most. Yeah, this is so this is just a crazy ass gimmick.
Yep.
But I love it.
I can't believe American Schuster guitars didn't take over the world. That's
well, you know what? If the guitar isn't built like crap, who cares if it has a metal strip on the bottom?
Yep, it's true.
I mean, I'd rather play this than something with a Bigsby on it.
There's no reason to ever play something with a Bigsby.
Right.
Unless the bet has been lost or something.
Okay, I gotta move on. Oh, here's one of those ads. Take 8 compact discs or 12 cassettes for 1 cent.
My God.
Columbia House. I made it to the Columbia House ad.
There you go. That was back in the day. That was the greatest. Like, they're getting away for 1 cent. Ha ha, suckers.
Dude, when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old, I must have driven my parents fucking crazy. Look, now I can get 20 CDs for 1 cent. Come on, please.
Yeah. Can't see any downside.
Like I would have already selected all the ones that I wanted. And
Clearly
then,
there's no downside. Yeah.
And then my poor dad, he just knew he would never succeed in explaining to my 10-year-old mind why this was a bad thing.
Didn't even try, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
All right, now I got an ad for Ibanez guitars featuring the great Andy Timmons, and they're promoting the Danger Screw It album, which is awesome. I love Danger, and Andy's an amazing player, so it's cool to see that. Thank you, Ibanez Guitars. Yeah. Followed by a full-page ad of Ozzy's No More Tears. This tells you exactly the time period we're at.
Yeah. Crap, there's an Alex Skolnick lesson in here that I
more
really wanted.
More Alex Skolnick.
Check out.
More Randy Coven. See, this is the kind of thing with Reeves Gabrels. I mean, there's all these amazing players who would be able to walk you through stuff that you never even thought about.
Yeah, I'm also getting the Reeves Gabrels thing. So these are
same time period.
Well, yeah. So that means folks that these are all regular columns.
Yep, exactly. Now there's in the listening room here with John Sticks, who's another great person who was the editor of Guitar for Practice Musician, with Vinnie Moore. And this is we're talking about they're talking about Paco de Lucia. They're talking about Jason Becker, Yngwie, Greg Howe. I mean, come on. Metallica, that wasn't Metallica. Southern, I don't know what the hell this is. Well, Leonard Skinner.
Well, wait. So are your issues from what? 91?
Yes, this issue has got 92. This shows you how deep, how close to the grunge apocalypse we're getting.
Yeah, well,
this is Guns N' Roses on the cover with Metallica.
Oh, so Guns N' Roses Don't Cry. Wah, wah,
and then Metallica is Through the Never.
Excuse me, Scott, that's Metallica.
And then Motley Crue, Shout the Devil, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is awesome.
All right,
and then
that's cool.
Jackson 5. So it shows you that they weren't just a metal-oriented thing. They had all kinds of stuff in there. Although at the time, metal was by far the most
But with Guns N' Roses Don't Cry and Metallica's Through the Never, like you can already start to hear the cracks in the hull.
Oh, there's the back line of the Crate amplifiers.
Hey, there's my buddy Joey.
This is Warrant. It's an ad for Crate amps. Crate amps, do they even exist still? Do they still exist in the
in the 90s, yeah.
Now do they exist? Does Crate amps
they don't exist now. So
okay.
I mean, who knows where so Crate amplifiers used to be the amplifier line from St. Louis Music.
Yep.
Who was they were like a musical goods distributor to all the music stores around the country, right? Yep. So you could be like a St. Louis music store and you'd carry the St. Louis music stuff, right? Yep. That also included what what else was St. Louis music? It was Crate Amplifier, like West Tone.
Yeah.
Like West Tone electric guitars, right? Like Series 10.
Yeah, I remember Series 10.
All of those kind of, I mean, they weren't off brands. They just weren't like the heavy hitter
They
brands.
weren't name brands, yeah.
Right.
Crate, though, I remember my very first 2 amplifiers I ever owned were Crate amplifiers.
Yeah, my first amplifier was a Crate also. And we survived and we still play.
We made it through.
If there, Scott, if there is a hell,
you're going there.
I've known I'm going there for 25 years because I sold
crimes against all of humanity.
Because I sold people Crate amplifiers.
Yep.
There it is. There's my big confession for the podcast.
Yep.
I hope our viewership doesn't dwindle to zero. And if I'm out on the streets in a week, it's because all my students quit.
If we have viewership, then I've really missed out this whole podcast thing.
Listenership. Well, they're viewing with their ears.
Exactly. You guys are imagining the room we're in right now.
Fernandez was a cool guitar maker.
Indeed, they were. And this is like a double cut sort of Les Paul type thing, which is, I'm sure, played way better than Les Paul.
Dude, I got an ad for the Charvel 475. Like
nice.
that.
With the are those select pickups in that one?
No, they say Jackson. They're Jackson OEMs.
No.
OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer, by the way.
Yep, and that just means that they're not good.
Oh, here's the old DOD pedals.
Oh my God, DOD pedals were so cool.
They couldn't quite master the recessed knobs that Boss had mastered.
They were always just not quite as well made too. I always noticed about DODs. They're just a little cheaper, a little bit more prone to falling apart, sort of.
Yeah.
Full page ad for GIT, my alma mater. God bless. Let's see what else we got here. Let's try and get to the stuff that's gonna make people. Okay, I'll tell you right now. There's a giveaway of a guitar in guitar. This is 1992,
and it's a Hammer Californian.
It's a Hammer Californian 27 fret guitar, bright pink, with an angled neck pickup and looks like a trimbucker with a Floyd rose. I mean, that to me is like the epitome of like 1990, 1991.
Those guitars. Are such cool guitars, man. One of the reasons I am obsessed with acquiring a Comparison Horus is that it basically has the same setup as the Hammer Californian, which are nearly impossible to find now.
Yep, it's true. So what other amazing stuff? Hey, Kirk Hammett from Metallica specializing in solos on the Black Album.
Yeah,
Ryan, that he's specialized. It says right here in Guitar for the Practical Musician.
Right, that's all he does. I'd love to hear what Kirk has to say about his unimaginative solos on that album.
I think he's talking about it in that whole thing.
He's like, hey, I'm rich. I'm just going to stick to this one scale and this one pattern.
Now, this is cool. There's like two things. One, there's a full-page ad with Vito Bratta from White Lion and for Carvin. Rad, amazing.
And he's advertising like Carvin power amps.
And because I'm sure he's just using it as a slave with like a preamp. He's probably using 81 with like maybe a PCM 70 or something like that.
And the Carvin cabs.
Yeah. And then Reeves Gabrels, there's a whole issue with him about his solo album. And the Reeves Gabrels was an amazing, he's still an amazing guitar player. He played with David Bowie in David Bowie's rock band Tin Machine. Monster guitar player. But I'm looking at the guy and he looks like he's dressed for a Calvin Klein ad. And that's something I really respect. It's like this is like the early '90s, and he's dressed like like Sting from the during his solo career or something.
It looks like he's playing an acrylic Steinberg.
Yep, he was a forward-thinking dude, man.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Oh, here we got a picture of Paul Gilbert here sitting in a stadium, and he still has the Edge trem on his guitar.
Yep,
Eat at Joe's.
Exactly,
it's written on his guitar.
Well, that just goes to show you. And then the whammy pedal ad. This is something that's, to me, and I think Brian and I have argued about this on the podcast before. I feel like the whammy pedal is the most interesting new thing that has ever come out, like guitar effects wise. I think that's like the last new thing that added something to the conversation. The whammy pedal. And I remember when this ad came out, looking at it, and I didn't understand what the hell it was. I'm like, what does it do?
Yeah, the whammy pedal actually came up again this last weekend. I had a student ask me to teach him how to play "Lonely Boy" by the Black Keys.
Oh wow. And
it's funny because on the intro, I mean, it's just like a droning open low E string, right? So I just wrote a measure with E and then repeat. On the tab portion, I just drew a 0 and then a repeat sign.
Over and over again.
So there's the intro. But later on, they throw in another note, which happens to be G.
I'm sure they totally were talking about, should we go to the minor third or the major third and imply a dominant tonality? I'm sure they were thinking that.
Yeah, so it's basically like E, 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 G, E, and then it dumps. Boo. So, I mean, I've got a double locking Floyd Rose bridge. So I
Like any good human would.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
and so I used my trem arm to dump the low E, and then tried to explain that to my student. Well, apparently they use a whammy pedal to do that.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have a guitar player at all, it's pretty amazing to me. So, you know, I don't know, man. Looking at these magazines makes me so sad in some ways, because I look at the excellence, like the just utter excellence of these players, and the whole culture at the time was all about like everyone really trying to be great.
Well, and it's not like they're leaving anybody out. I mean, I know you don't like the Ramones, but they're in here too. So if you're a person who just wants something, you know, if you're a person who has never played guitar at all, I mean, yeah, learn Blitzkrieg Bop.
Yep.
Right, you'll get that on day
Or
one.
screw it, man. Learn freaking what's the Brain Stew by Green Day or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, was Green Day born yet?
No, Green Day was probably not even born yet back then. Well, no,
No.
because dude, Billy Joe is actually older than you and I, so so he was born. He just learned all the wrong.
Yeah, but the
lessons.
band Green Day, was it born? I don't know. Maybe,
know.
maybe right about. Who knows? I love this though. More at the bottom of this issue with Eric Clapton, Vivian Campbell, and Eddie Van Halen on it. There's at the bottom more Randy Rhoads exclusive guitar lessons.
Exactly.
Like, awesome. Dude, Vixen has a piece of this.
Yep. I mean, this shows you those guys. Everybody on that is legit. Like Eddie Van Halen, Clapton, Vivian Campbell, Vixen. I mean, I don't. Here's the thing I always feel about punk and like the grunge thing is I feel like that art is valid. You can make that art. It's not for me, but I think that why did it have to be all this? This is the only thing that's valid now. You know, we couldn't have the River Dogs and Nirvana. We had to have just Nirvana. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there was. I mean, you know, I think the big one reason. Speaking for myself, one reason that I am not very charitable towards the grunge apocalypse artists is because when they came on the scene, they in interviews, right? They
talked all kinds of
they
smack,
completely trashed all the
Yeah.
bands that came before when the radio format changed over.
Yeah.
Now you can say that that's driven by record companies, but Kurt Cobain didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, he ruined a lot of people's careers.
Well, I read an interview recently. I think it was with Mick Mars or something. They said that they wouldn't.
It wasn't with Kurt Cobain.
Well, no, they said that they wanted to have Nirvana on one of the Motley Crue tours, and he refused to have anything to do with Motley Crue. And Guns N' Roses too. He said like Guns N' Roses, that was like the thing he hates about rock was that he would never tour with them. This like early '90s when they were first breaking,
Yeah.
and it's like going like, what's your problem, bro? You know, brah.
Yeah, bro. Okay. Yeah, and so, you know, all those, and I'm sure Eddie Vedder talked shit too.
Yeah. Well,
You
of
know?
course he did.
Of course he did.
You know, who didn't though is Alice in Chains, because his best buddy, like Count Troll's
Yep.
best buddy, is Eddie Van Halen, and Van Halen took them out on their first few tours.
That's
you know what I
right.
mean? And so those guys were all tight from the beginning. And I think the reason why is Alice in Chains is legit and can really play.
Right, exactly.
Everybody respected Soundgarden too.
Yeah,
The
Soundgarden.
was
I
a
haven't
band-
heard anything about Soundgarden trashing anybody else.
And then everybody
right?
else, all the other bands thought that band was great. The
Yep.
only two bullshit bands were Nirvana and Pearl Jam. That
Yep.
was the only two bullshit. And then a bunch of other derivative bands. That came
Well, all
after
the
that.
bands that came after that
Stone
were
Temple
bullshit.
Pilots,
Like,
Temple of the Dog, this kind of shit.
well, Temple
you know?
of the Dog was just like,
a super group of sorts, but it was
yeah,
they
well,
kind of-
not very super.
yeah,
but,
not at all. It's not.
But you know, all the like second wave bands after that, like all your Candleboxes and
Spin Doctors
and stupid ass Creed and
yeah. Creed
like,
came way later, man. Creed was like 99.
well,
like,
you're right. I mean, going
Yeah.
all the way to the end of the decade,
Yeah.
right? All those like second tier bands, they followed the Nirvana / Pearl. They really followed the Pearl Jam mode.
Yeah.
With the death of quality singing. So, you know, whatever. I'd be more charitable if that original wave hadn't completely trashed and decimated the careers or participated in the decimation of the careers
Yeah.
of the artists.
I
that
have
came
to
before
say
them.
that the culpability doesn't just lie with the record companies and the bands, but also with the fans too.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the
fans.
listeners,
No,
too.
no one put a gun to your head and said you can't listen to Winger anymore. You have to listen to Pearl Jam only. You know, you chose to do that. You know
And
what I
hey,
mean?
you know, I like Beavis and Butthead, but I hate what they did to Winger.
Yeah, of
so,
course.
you know, it's nuance, folks.
Yeah. Oh, that's no nuance in that. And Winger was awesome. No one should have ever talked any shit about Winger ever. That should not have happened. But anyway, moving
And hey,
on.
whatever. If you watch the new episodes of Beavis and Butthead, I think Stuart turned out better than Beavis or Butthead. So, you know, if you're gonna go back,
But at least they're trashing Post Malone. Right? That's good, right? That's so.
oh yeah, well that is good.
So they're
They do need to do that.
recompense.
So here's a cool thing, right? Since we just opened up these magazines here for the first time, we were talking about, you know, putting the ads like on
Yeah,
our
on the
walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just turned to the article with Jan Kennemund, rest in peace,
Yep. Great
from
guitar player.
Vixen, great guitar player, and Cher Peterson, right, who
Yep.
vocals and also played guitar there.
She's a bassist. Sher Peterson's the bassist.
Was she the bassist?
Yeah, the singer is Janet Gardner in that band.
Oh, that's right. Damn it,
Yep.
I fucked up. Well, anyway, so
By the way, I'm pretty sure that the current iteration of Vixen, there's only the drummer Roxy Petrucci. That's the only one that's left.
who's awesome?
She's awesome. And actually, the girl who's a singer for Femme Fatale is the lead vocals now.
Oh, oh man, I know her name too.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm spacing on it. It's a good band. I mean, they're still great. I'm not saying they're not great, but when Jan passed, I was kind of like,
Yeah, that was too bad.
Yeah.
Man. Well, so so on the second page after the cover photo, whoever owned this before me cut the photo out.
Oh, it's Randy
of the
Rhoads. You
second
can see
page.
it's a picture of Randy.
Hey, no, never mind. So if you turn the page, a private lesson with Randy Rhoads Part 2, and whoever owned this magazine cut out the picture of Randy Rhoads, ostensibly to hang it on their bedroom wall.
Yep.
Look at that. So we can, even if when we get old issues of Guitar for the Practice,
Someone else has done that too.
yeah, someone that you and I will never meet cut this out.
You know what I want to believe
That's
he
so
did?
cool.
I want to believe he went to like Home Goods or Kohl's and got like a frame, like a photo frame, and then stuck that picture like on his on his mantle or something.
I hope he like took it and like performed like a black magic ritual and like incinerated it, asking
Let's be
asking
honest,
to be
though, Ryan-
transported back in time to when Randy was alive.
Is there ever a time when you don't wish someone would do a black magic,
No, I'm pretty much down with that all the time.
Almost any time. Like, would you like a taco? Hey, let me pull out my ritual.
Hang on a sec. Here, let me make this pentagram in hot sauce. Stand.
Yes, I shall bring before the dark forces to make sure that the guacamole is fresh.
Yeah, whenever I order a Mexican pizza, I always draw a pentagram on it with fire sauce. Yeah.
I had a feeling that was true. I knew that was happening.
Absolutely. The demons release later on after
Yes.
the digestion process.
Exactly. The toilet takes the most of that.
Right.
Yep. So let's see what else is cool in this
Okay,
magazine.
so check out this ad. Okay, this is from this is from Musician's Enemy, the original.
Yeah, but they've got Hot Licks videos in there. That's good.
Well, so the ad says you'll play better than you ever dreamed possible with help from Musician's Enemy.
Well, imagine a time though when the goal was to play guitar as good as you possibly could.
Yeah, I like that part.
That's a pretty cool thing,
Yeah,
you know what I
just
mean?
not real charitable towards Musician's Enemy.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the original mail order catalog, and so you just order your crap from Musician's Enemy and then take it to your local guitar shop
And
for a setup.
And that's been on steroids ever since then. 'Cause now it's everywhere you look. You know?
Right. Well, Jeff Bezos sure stepped on the gas with that one,
That's true.
and Guitar Satan. Yep. Let's see. Welcome to the Jungle with Ross Systems.
Nice.
Here's another. Okay, here's another.
Oh, that's
Hammer
the Steve
ad.
Stevens Centaura. Yeah.
Yeah, Centaura, man, those are great guitars. Yeah,
You have to understand, Steve Stevens was such a monster back in the day. He's obviously best known as a guitarist for Billy Idol, but he played with his own band, the Atomic Playboys, which I think is around the time this came out.
dude, the Atomic Playboys album is so good.
Yeah, that was
so crazy
Gave him a
good.
chance. And then to me, like my favorite thing he's ever done is the Vince Neil solo record, The Exposed. That's great. That's
Well,
so
and you know,
good.
most people have heard him, and they don't even know they've heard him. But everybody knows the Top Gun theme.
Yep, that's Steve Stevens.
That's Steve
He won an
Stevens.
Oscar for that shit.
As he should
Yeah,
have.
it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
He should have won every possible award.
Yep, it's true. Best cinematography.
Right?
Somehow, just he still win it. You know.
So cool. Okay, here's great white sailing a sea of crate half stacks.
Yep. Well, I know that no shark would ever try to get a bite of that. So
Yes, I hear that a submersible was just lost trying to see the wreckage of that stack of crate
crates.
amplifiers.
Yep.
To see the
Just to
remains
make
of
sure it
Mark
was
Kendall.
dead.
Right. Oh my God. Let's see. What else do we have? Hey, okay, so there's Guitar for the Practicing Musician Extra. I guess that's another like a bonus issue you can order with Bonnie Raitt on the cover.
Yep, Bonnie
That's
Raitt,
awesome.
Great guitar player. Yep.
And let's see, Albert Collins, John Schofield, Albert Lee.
Yep. So it's kind of like not metal or rock oriented issue. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right next to it though is an ad for Aria Pro 2 guitars, which every guitar player knows what Aria Pro 2s are. It's kind of the original starter guitar.
Yep. Yngwie played in Aria Pro V on the first Alcatraz album.
I'm not surprised. I mean, that's
Crazy
a
stuff.
Very famous guitar maker from back in the day.
Yeah, man. I love how just in a magazine like this, I mean, again, going down that list of names on the other magazine, right? Bonnie Raitt, Albert Collins, John Scofield, Sharon Isbin transcription to Prelude in E minor Bach Lute Suite. This is in your local guitar magazine, folks, or this is in the guitar magazine.
Well,
you buy
excellence was a part of the culture back then. You know,
being good at stuff.
Yeah, it was.
Man, it's better to be good at stuff than come as you are.
Yep, rape me,
right, man.
Jeremy
Jeremy
today.
committed suicide. Now I'm profiting off of it.
Exactly.
And I know they'll say that they gave up the proceeds of the song, but whatever. It helps sell the album, so shut up, Eddie Vedder.
Yeah. Well, also, should have kind of doubled down on that. We're so dark and twisted and weird, and we're
going to draw attention to this issue. Man.
We're not going to have nothing but a good time because we never have a good time. Because having a good time is not real.
No, dude, Poison was having nothing but a good time.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they're trying to paint themselves as the antithesis. We're not ever having a good time over here.
So check this out. So there's an article for the Marshall, like an ad for the Marshall JCM 900. Dude, this will just totally bring our conversation today full circle. On the top, it's just a picture, a close-up picture of a gain knob
going to 20,
turned all the way up to 20.
Heck yeah, that's 10 more, isn't it?
Oh, and you know what? If we look over in the corner of my studio, I have the Marshall ad. Thank you to my buddy Tommy. I know he wants it back. I salvaged it though. It's the poster with Nigel Tufnell saying, "Now it goes to 20. That's not allowed in it." So there it is. We've brought everything full circle.
Well, guys, one thing that
knob.
I would say is you can find for your very own self Guitar for the Practical Musician magazines. If you go on eBay and search around a little bit, you can find these guys. It's worth doing because it not only is it like a time capsule of the time period, and this is a time period that was very formative for Ryan and I. This is sort of where we were cutting our teeth as very young guitar players and trying to figure stuff out. I can't tell how much it was an exciting time. It was so cool. It's such a cool time to be a guitar player back then.
Yeah, dude, such a cool time. Oh, there's an ad for Alvarez. Alvarez was the other St. Louis music company. I think Series 10 and West 10, I think those were Command brands.
Alvarez, was that ever solid body electric guitar, or they always just do acoustics?
Yeah, no, dude, okay, I encourage everybody to go look up the Alvarez Dana Scoop, which also appears, Mark Ferrari plays it in the band in Tia Carrere's band in Wayne's World.
Oh, okay.
It had the cutaway that went under the neck joint.
Oh, wow.
That was called the Scoop. So there's a luthier. His name's Dana Sutcliffe. Mm-hmm. He designed the Dana Scoop. It's like a dinky style strap body, but the lower cutaway, it goes all the way under.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yep.
So Alvarez, they were the ones who made the production version of that guitar.
Actually, no, I'm thinking about, wasn't Alvarez the ones that made the Trevor Rabin signature guitar too?
I think they did. They also made the Mike Weir acoustic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know them as an acoustic brand, but that being said, I was wondering, did they make electrics? I guess they did.
Yeah, they made killer electrics, man. That was good stuff. Well, so that was your St. Louis brand.
This shows you too. Right next to that is an ad for a giveaway that they were doing at this time, and $8,000 live rig from Neil Sean.
Wow, let's look at what's in the live rig.
Okay, let's see, it's like an Epiphone Strat, which tells you Epiphone was making Strats with Floyd Roses back in the day.
Oh, yeah, that is Epiphone. I thought it was an ESP, but yeah, it is an Epiphone Strat. What do you know?
And then you got Dean Markley strings, Dean Duncan pickups, Randall amps, Digitech, preamps.
An ART processor of some kind.
BB Sonic Maximizer.
The BBE Maximum Sodomizer.
I have one of those in one of my rigs, man.
Yeah, I used to have one of those too. We used to put BBE Maximum Sodomizers and Bellari tube oral exciters in our rack systems back in the day.
They had no shame with naming stuff back in the day.
Well, I mean, I think we named it that. But yeah, man, those were cool.
It shows you that people reading this would be people who would be interested in an $8,000 guitar rig back in the day. You know, that's something that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? So was there any other cool stuff in this one?
I'm sure there is. If there's any pages left, you know there's going to be cool stuff. There's an Ibanez ad with Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream.
Yep.
where he's actually flying above his bedroom, which is also filled with Ibanez guitars.
One thing that I should also mention is that all the old Guitar for Practice Musician magazines actually had lots of transcriptions. Like half the magazine left here is all just transcriptions of different songs, like
That's
full
right.
transcriptions, which is so cool. And that's by guys like Andy Alador who actually know what the hell they're doing. You know what I mean?
And I think it should also be pointed out that the transcriptions have not only tab, but also standard notation.
Yep, exactly.
Which is no longer the case.
Yeah, because they assumed that you actually knew something about music back then. You know what I mean? That's the difference. Okay, we've kind of gotten all of our bile out and all of our love. So let's go ahead and wrap it up on that note, on that happy note. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Brian and Scott.
Oh, man. There's just one more thing.
Okay.
Okay, so you can order these Metallica books. Hey, can you tell me what albums are available on the Metallica?
It looks to me like we have Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All, Master of Puppets, and Injustice for All.
So all of the Metallica albums that will ever exist, you could order the books, the music books, the sheet music books, all in this one ad. Every Metallica album that has ever been created or will ever be made, all in this one ad. Isn't that great?
That is amazing. Those are
So
great.
awesome.
I got some can't say anything negative. They're all amazing.
Totally.
So.
They are. So on a positive note. So I'm sorry. You can go ahead and wrap it up now.
All right, guys. So please make sure to check out our socials at actually our website at www.xagesband.com. Socials are going to be at facebook.com/xagesband, instagram.com/xagesband, and twitter.com/xagesband. You'll get links to the current podcast if you aren't subscribed, which of course you are. You're listening to this. You're going to be subscribed to the podcast. That's what you do. And all the information about our band, our releases. If you want to find out more information about Ryan and I, want to take lessons with us, you can find all the info you need right there. So go ahead, Ryan. What are you going to say?
So just one last shout out and a great big thank you to my good buddy Garrett. Thank you so much for the thoughtful gift.
Yep.
I'll be enjoying these far beyond the recording of this podcast. So dude, thank you. You're awesome. And all of you out there listening to us are also super awesome. That website again is www.exaegisband.com.
Thanks for listening. Peace.